Good day, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Hazmat Guys. I'm Bobby Salveson, so let's get into it.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 59. We are the premier podcast dealing with hazardous material response for the fire responder, and we're going to give you the knowledge and the insight to do our job safely and effectively. I'm Michael Monaco, and glad to be here with my co-host for the first time in the same room ever, Bob Salverson.
We are literally next to each other. It's a little weird.
It is a little weird. There's no delay, there's no nothing. It's just, here we are.
This is going to cut down my editing by a lot of time. It's going to be awesome, actually.
Oh, do we have any shows coming up? What do we got going on?
Well, we're going to do an extra episode in the next one or two, probably around the Christmas time.
Like a bonus.
Yes, it is. It's going to be a bonus. It is not truly in this whole hazmat thing, but it's more about. I went and recently took a class, and it was painful. It was tough.
Can it be painful if you're sleeping?
It cannot, but we are writing almost like an operational plan for. I don't want to give away the title.
Okay.
How to survive both from the student perspective and instructor perspective for a rather dry topic in hazardous materials. And it's going to be, I was laughing writing the outline, and that was my method to stay awake in the class. So it should be really, I have a lot of good ideas just jotted down on a little scrap of napkin.
All right, sounds good. What about speaking engagements? We got anything coming up? I know we're put in for Baltimore in the summertime, but that's mighty far away.
That is in June. We have New York State that we are gearing up for. That's in April. That should be. I'm kind of excited about that one because that's one of the places that I work. I'm at the New York State Fire Academy, and we're going to be up there with one of our friends, Bob Metcalf.
Yes.
Was just asked to be in that cadre of talentless people that they have going up there. But
nothing like scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
for the
they got to be hard up to cola. So we're going to be going up there, but just help us get there. Maybe you can buy us a beer or a coffee if you go to the website www.thehazmatguys.com, and you go to the right side, you see the donate button. That's the PayPal, and just buy us a beer or a coffee or whatever you think this drivel is worth. And it'll be very good for us.
Fantastic. So what do we got going on today? We are doing what?
We are talking about hydrogen sulfide.
Ooh, kind of a hot topic lately, especially with all the chemical suicides that have been going on. But
yeah,
I think this one, we don't touch so much on the suicide as we do kind of just getting into the nitty gritty of the chemical itself.
Right. And so we were playing around with topics, and we have a plethora of topics to pick from, but we were really starting to go into like the top 10 statistical chemicals that you're going to respond to, and Mike picked this one out, and it's a doozy.
It most certainly is.
So as far as hydrogen sulfide, this is a really badass chemical. I think that because we hear it all the time, and because it's fairly common, that we take it for granted just on how nasty this little bugger is.
Yeah, and in reality, this is a chemical that we find pretty much out there in everyday life. Almost every house has it, apartment, building, underground spaces has a potential of having this chemical introduced into it.
Right, so it's common, and yet it is flammable, corrosive, poisonous, and toxin, so it's a ground ball.
Well, I mean, kind of redundant, right? Like, is there really a difference between poisonous and toxic?
Actually, yes, there is. It's a chemical that fits into both, you see. A poison is a substance that has a noxious effect on a living organism, right? Which is like basically me and you. And yet a toxin is a poison that is produced by living organisms.
All right, I was just joking around. You don't have to get technical on me.
See?
I was just trying to break your balls a little.
That's not funny to me.
But the hydrogen sulfide, it goes by a whole ton of names, all right? We've got acid sulfurhydric. Some of these things I can't even pronounce. Hydrosulfuric acid.
It goes by sewer gas, sour gas, and my personal favorite, stink damp.
Stink damp.
Silly.
I think I've run into a few stink damps late at night. Sulfur hydride would be another name. Dihydrogen monosulfide, kind of like how we call water dihydrogen monoxide. And sulfurated hydrogen are all different names that you can come across this.
Interesting. So How can something so toxic be in so many places?
All right, well, the quick answer to this is reflected in the actual question of the difference between the poison and the toxin that you mentioned before.
Well, hydrogen sulfide is, well, also known as H2S, is naturally occurring product. And one of the largest places that it comes from is the breakdown of organic matter and waste.
So by the organic matter, we're talking about the things that were once alive and now so much are not. So that could be animals, plants, waste.
Right. Stuff that you pretty much found in sewers. That's why they call it sewer gas, I guess. All right. Well, it's created when bacteria, fungus, and a few other little creatures chow down on the organic matter, and that contains sulfur and a lot of the amino acids that are inside of it. And then the sulfur is metabolized and released as hydrogen sulfide.
So it's kind of like a bacteria fart.
That's overly simplistic, but yes, that is absolutely true. And it's funny how you say that, because if you fart into a multimeter gas, your hydrogen sulfide will spike.
I'm not even going to ask.
What? What, you mean you never fart into a meter?
I got no comment on that.
That's crazy.
But this would actually make sense as to why we find it in so many homes and apartments. It also explains how we get the name sewer gas.
All right, so since we are dealing with a gas that is heavier than air, and it will tend to accumulate in low-lying and low ventilation areas like basements, crawl spaces, and the ever-present sewer.
Ooh, hence the sewer gas.
Or storm drain, whatever.
This is why every single home has the potential to have sewer gas coming back into the home from the waste system. And this is actually the most often occurrence. Well, I guess I should say the way this occurs the most is by what we call a dry trap.
Yes, so for our non-plumbers out there, what does that mean?
All right, open up your sink and take a peek down there. You're going to see the pipe come down off the sink, and it's going to make like a weird S shape or a J shape. This is your main trap, all right? There's one for your house, there's one for your toilet, there's one for your sink. If this trap is cracked or leaking, then it dries out, and the sewer gases come back into the house from the septic tank or the cesspool, whatever it is that you have at your house.
Right, it's actually called a P-trap, and the way it actually works is that as long as that little dip in the pipe is full of water, it allows water to pass by it, but not allow the gas to go back inside. So as long as it's not cracked and leaking, a great way to mitigate this is to run water into the trap, thereby filling that little loop. And if you have a leak, then you're kind of shit out of luck. And you know you saw what I did there, right?
I did, thanks. Yeah, I got it. All right. So the microorganism fart isn't just limited to your final destination of your dinners. Organic materials are released everywhere at any time you have a space that isn't well ventilated, that you have an accumulation of H2S.
So we're talking about things like manholes, wells, caves, bunkers, basically most of our confined spaces that are below grade.
Yeah, and industry, especially the oil and gas industry, are extremely familiar with this chemical.
It's a very common gas, and even more common cause of death in areas where the economy is based on drilling.
And since fracking has become such a popular means of removing product from our blue marble, this means that areas most likely to see large amounts of hydrogen sulfide are actually growing.
Wow. And then we see hydrogen sulfide, or H2S, being created during suicide attempts.
Kind of hard to call them suicide attempts, right? They're pretty much always successful.
All right, true. No rescue has ever been performed in a level A, though, right?
Actually, that is false. The hazmat teams up in Massachusetts just recently rescued a woman, and they were in level A, and she attempted to kill herself via H2S self-deportation.
I don't know who ruins more of my fun, Massachusetts or you.
All right, well, let's chat a little bit about the actual chemical physical properties of this. We said it's really, really toxic, so let's get into how toxic it is. We're going to talk about concentrations in parts per million, and then some of the symptoms and effects. So what do we have first?
Well, if we're talking about concentration, you're talking about 0.00011 to 0.00033 parts per million. That's your typical background concentration.
So there's just pretty much always this stuff floating around in the air.
Yeah, at some level it is there, but the odor becomes more offensive at like 3 to 5 parts per million. So that's where our nose kind of picks up on it. There are certain sensitivities that the human body picks up on. Ours is 3 to 5 parts per million. And above 30 parts per million, odor is described as a sweet or sickeningly sweet.
Oh, I guess so. It almost overwhelms the olfactory senses.
Yes.
And at 2 to 5 parts per million, any kind of prolonged exposure to this chemical at 2 to 5 parts per million is going to cause nausea, tearing of the eyes, headaches, loss of sleep, airway problems such as like bronchial constriction, especially if you have people prone to bronchial constriction like asthma patients.
At 20 parts per million, you have possible fatigue, loss of appetite, headache, irritability, just like us, and poor memory, and sometimes dizziness.
I'm exposed to this stuff all the time.
I'm swooning just thinking of it. At 50 to 100 parts per million, you get slight conjunctivitis, which is called gas eye, and respiratory tract irritation after 1 hour. This also may cause some digestive upset and loss of appetite, like any meal that our sister company makes.
I've yet to lose my appetite over anything. All right, so let's go to 100 parts per million, because this is where things start to get a little interesting. At 100 parts per million, some of the symptoms that you're going to see are going to be coughing, eye irritation, loss of smell altogether. All right, this is olfactory fatigue. It just basically overwhelms the old schnoz. Altered breathing, drowsiness after 15 to 30 minutes, throat irritation after an hour, and a gradual increase in the severity of these symptoms the longer you're exposed to them. At about this time, or this concentration, death may occur within 48 hours.
Wow. At 100 to 150 parts per million, you lose your sense of smell. The olfactory fatigue or paralysis is just too much.
At 200 to 300 parts per million, you've got marked conjunctivitis and respiratory tract infection within an hour. Pulmonary edema may occur after prolonged exposure at this rate.
And now we're starting up to the higher levels, but 500 to 700 parts per million, you have staggering, collapse within 5 minutes, serious damage to the eyes in 30 minutes, and death after 30 to 60 minutes of that exposure level.
Similar to this show, at 700 to 1,000 parts per million, you have rapid unconsciousness and knockdown almost immediately. We're talking like 1 or 2 breaths. You're going to stop breathing, and if you don't fall out of the cloud, you have death within minutes.
I don't know how you could fall out of the cloud when it's on the ground, unless we're made of helium.
I don't think you could.
Unless
could fall up.
Unless you're Joey Helium.
You could fall on an escalator.
That's ridiculous. That's silly. At 1,000 to 2,000 parts per million, it's nearly instant death. You know, I just want to go back and talk about olfactory fatigue because it's kind of an important topic here because at a certain point, which we just discussed, your nose, your brain actually is just going to stop processing those signals. And what the typical user feels is that, hey, you know, it went down. I'm not in the area anymore. It's not a big deal. You got to depend on your meter because it is not getting stupid. You are. Basically, so, you know, if you see the meter holding and you're not getting it anymore, and I don't know why you'd even be in that point where you're smelling things at this level, then you really have to think about what you're doing there because olfactory fatigue for this gas is extremely important.
And it's kind of important to take that and tie it into the parts per million and the symptoms because you could have somebody who turned around and said, I'm on an EMS run, I'm a paramedic, and somebody says, yeah, there was a smell in my house for a little while. It kind of went away, and then I just started feeling sick. So these are, for the EMS workers out there, these are key things that we want to punch in on. After this, after it's gotten into you, we want to talk a little bit about how the hydrogen sulfide actually screws with your body. Mm-hmm. So tough question for you. You ready?
Okay.
All right. What do you think the route of entry for hydrogen sulfide is going to be?
I'm going to say it's going to be inhalation.
Yep, right through the old schnoz into the lungs. And then once it's in the lungs, it gets into your circulatory system, causes your head to go between your legs so that you can go ahead and kiss your ass goodbye.
All right, H2S is going to get to the very depths of the cells. Within our cellular machinery is a little thing called the mitochondria.
Ah, the old powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah, and that is where all of our energy, or ATP, comes from. ATP is like the gasoline for our cells, and without the fuel for the cell, it cannot function.
And H2S is fat soluble, so that little bastard moves right through cell membranes, which is why it hits the central nervous system so hard. Now, don't get me wrong, all right? It's going to hit all the other organs that it goes into, but it literally turns off your lungs from the brainstem just like a light switch when you hit it with enough ppms.
So what about, let's say, smaller concentrations? This isn't one of those chemicals that clears up once you get into fresh air. It can have lasting effects on your life.
Oh, yeah. It can screw up your breathing, acute heart attacks, and a condition known as neuropsychic sequelae.
What the hell is neuropsychiatric sequelae?
Not a clue. It was on the internet, so I just put it in.
That's a wiki. What about flammability?
All right. H2S has quite the range of flammability. Its LEL is 4.5, and the UEL is all the way up to 45.5. Not a lot of other gases we're going to see have this kind of a range.
And just to go back to that, we like in hazmat narrow ranges.
Yeah.
We like, wide ranges make us a little more scared. And this is pretty wide. This is like 40 points.
Yeah, there's I would challenge you to find other common chemicals that are that wide other than, say, acetylene.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. What about detection? Can you say, shall you follow your nose?
Follow the nose? No, you don't want to follow your nose. All right, you never want to be one of those using the olfactory detection equipment. Yes, it smells like rotten eggs. Yes, it is incredibly recognizable. However, it literally turns off and kills your nerves. And you get dead into the smell so quickly, so it's not recommended.
And on top of that, the low concentration will give you throat and eye irritation, headache, mucous membrane pains, etc., etc.
All good things to remember if you have that H2S patient toxicity.
Well, there are a variety of colorimetric instruments out there that can detect this, and that's a good thing for us.
Yeah, there sure is. All right, we got lead acetate paper. All right, this is a tape that's going to change color in the presence of H2S.
Yeah, and it generally changes from white to brown, and we can use the spread of this reaction to gauge how much the product is, or how much product there is, I guess. There is a direct correlation with parts per million and the quickness of the color change. I would guess it's not by the depth of the color.
No, I think it's by the literal speed of the color.
All right, good to know.
Which is a nice little trick because you can take the tape and it's always on you. All right, there's no batteries to die, there's nothing to look at, but it does have its downfalls because there's no notification system on it. There's nothing to let you know, hey, idiot, look at me. You have to remember to look at it, and it's not going to tell you when you're in a dangerous atmosphere.
There are also colorimetric tubes and chips that we can use to get a very, very accurate reading of these atmospheres, and we talked about this a little bit in advanced metering as a secondary metering technique. Typically, you're going to find these things in glass tubules, and based upon a little hand pump thing, you'll pull a certain amount of pumps through in a certain amount of time, and you'll see a visual color change. Another great little trick that I just picked up very recently is that if you have a liquid and you want to test it, you can crack it off and leave one end closed, and you can pour a little bit in, and you'll see a liquid a change in color as well.
I didn't know that. That is a good trick.
I just got that.
So again, the only downfall to these is that they're a little clumsy, and you got to pump them to get them to work, but they are very accurate.
Good stuff. All right, so let's get into some of the electrically controlled detectors that we have out there.
All right, guys, like Bob said before, we've covered a lot of these technologies in other shows. So if we're not going into real depth on these, go back and listen to those shows because we go into extreme depth in understanding these meter technologies.
And there's more to come on that, right?
There is.
Well, one of them is metal oxide, and that's one of the ones that comes to my mind. It's a great technology in general because it's so sensitive to combustible gases at a low ppm, and that's what pretty much we're dealing with here.
Right, and although most metal oxides, all they're going to do is qualify that there's something in there, there are a few out there that will give you a reading.
And then there's the electrochemical sensor, which this is one we find most of our meters have that give us a quote-unquote reading.
Right, they do have their downfalls like everything else, and honestly, I really wouldn't trust one that's taken a real good solid hit of H2S. H2S, they burn out the cells very, very easily, and then they tend to malfunction. But it is nice to have a multi-gas to tell me the LEL just in case we get in it deep.
All right, these are our personal favorites. Like Mike just said, they give us a reading at the part per million range, and they can be alarmed so we don't have to be actually looking at the detector to know we're in a bad atmosphere.
GCMS can also help to pick this chemical up.
What about NDIR?
You know, I don't know. That's kind of one of those new technologies that's out there, and I don't know if anybody has an NDIR that picks up H2S. But your PID will pick it up because it does have an IP of 10.46.
Well, the FID, the flame ionization detector, will not pick it up. Remember, the FID, I was going to say FDIC. Remember that the FID, although can detect higher IPs, it is really detecting the organic compounds, and H2S is not organic. You don't hear any carbons in there.
No, nothing.
So wouldn't work.
All right.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Hazmat Guys. Thanks for taking a little bit of your day to listen to us and hopefully make your job a little bit easier.
You can find us all over the place. Facebook, Twitter, Google+, any of those at the Hazmat Guys. Take a moment, go to iTunes, put in a review, or even better yet, go off and find somebody and tell them about the show. Let them know who we are and what we're all about. And you can always leave a comment on our comment hotline, 843-628-1484. That's 8436-THE-MAT.
We are also now recording the show and also producing a live, unedited version of the show, not this one, because we're actually standing next to each other. So go and find us on Google+, Google, YouTube channel, whatever you want to find. And if you subscribe, we'll tell you when the show starts, again, if that's what you want.
And we're always looking for your feedback. Please let us know any information you have, any interesting incidents you were on, you want to be part of the show. Send us a note at feedback@thehazmatguys.com.
Remember, guys, don't just get on the job, get into the job.